We're going to go introductions to the panel. We are going to look at where things are, roadmaps. We will also be having kind of a community discussion talking about the US WDS community, Drupal community, how those pull together. And then we're going to open it up. We really want to have your input, your feedback, your questions. So this is as much for you guys as it is for us to kind of share information with you. We want to gather information from you as well. Okay, introduction. So we're going to use the lens of the Big Bang Theory. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. Some of you don't know anything about it, so you may be a little lost with the quotes. And it's the Big Bangisms like Drupalisms, right? So just bear with us. So again, there will be Big Bangisms. This is not going to be a deep dive into code. This is a community discussion. The law of 2 feet. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but if this doesn't end up being what you were thinking it was going to be, or if it's just not quite, or if you have to leave, don't feel bad about it. We're not going to feel bad if people have to leave. That's kind of, we want it to be useful for you. We want it to be appropriate for you. And if it's not, hey, take the opportunity to find something else that's going to fit better for you. Remember that the US WDS website is a great resource. So if you really want more information, definitely dig into that. And, you know, everybody's mileage may vary on this. Some people are going to get some really good value. Others be like, okay, you know. But don't worry about it. We're just here to kind of share and collaborate with each other in the kind of the sense of community. So I do want to kind of get a little idea of the audience here. I want to find out who has experience with the US WDS. Let's start with version 1. Have people, okay, cool, excellent. Oh wow, a lot more than I thought. Version 2, who are on the front edge of it? Excellent. All right, cool. And what type of people are in here? Are we talking content creators? Do we have content creators? Excellent. Developers. I know a couple of you. Okay, good. And do we have managers, people trying to make decisions on this stuff, right? You need to know. Can't just trust your developers. They'll give you all the details, but not the 10,000 foot level, right? You don't want the in the weeds. All right. Our first panel member, Dan Williams. Dan's the product owner and project lead for the US WDS, working previously at the GSA on this as well. He was a visual designer and a front-end developer at 18F. Dan? Next. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying hi.
Excellent. All right.
I'm also just figuring out how much I have to project and heard throughout the audience. Great.
Can you hear Dan in the front row and in the back row too? Everywhere in between?
The recording won't pick you up if you don't use a mic.
We got a directional here, so hopefully it'll work. We don't have the traveling mic, sorry. All right, Brian Seek. Brian is a member of Civic Actions, a Drupalist for 8 years, currently using US WDS version 2 for a project with the Department of Justice. Brian, why don't you say hi?
Hello, can everybody hear me too? No?
A little louder.
A little bit louder like this? Still louder? I don't let my voice get
Brian, I think you're just going to have to be angry, Brian, today.
Alright, I'll try to do some of this for you guys.
You gotta be talking to camera.
My name's Dboeger. I'm a front-end developer. Kind of a web Swiss Army knife. I do a lot of different stuff. Front-end development, content creation, graphic design, kind of all over the place. And yes, those are blue eyebrows. Those were originally blue mustaches, but I had my own, so I had to adopt, right? Adapt and overcome. So, this is where we kind of open the door, you know. This is where we get an opportunity to learn about the projects and kind of feel them out. So as you see here, it's the knock knock pennies situation where it's going to be repetitive, but I think it's going to be good. So, Dan, why don't you go ahead and speak a little bit about where things are currently with the design system and where they're going.
So, yeah, in general, it's like right now is a particularly good time, I think, to be building our own websites. There's a lot of change in the air, and there's new legislation like 21st Century Integrated Digital Experience Act that, you know, with that, there's kind of a strong and really an explicit push towards data-driven, human-centered design. So there's a lot of there's a lot of energy toward building new sites that are that provide a good experience for the American public. And the US Web Design System, I'm not going to get super into all the nuts and bolts of what it does, but it's an important part of the puzzle. It's sort of a toolkit for helping to build websites, for delivering a reliable starting point for building government digital design projects. There are tools to make it easier to build accessible, mobile-friendly government websites. So that means markup, CSS, JavaScript. But it's also a design language for customizing and building new work, stuff that doesn't already exist in the design system. New work that is internally consistent and more consistent across government. So the design system is a tool for designing and a tool for building websites. But while the design system is an important, useful starting point, it doesn't really achieve its full practical potential without the development teams that implement it. US WDS is intentionally sort of implementation agnostic. So it can be used in Drupal or Jekyll, React Vue, WordPress, Gatsby, what have you. We try to provide the starting point and the building blocks that any team might use to then template out in their system of choice. So what this means is that though we're helping to consolidate and streamline a suite of design solutions, a design language, markup, CSS, etc., there's still a real abundance and diversity of implementations. And while we're helping to reduce duplication of effort in one part of the problem, there's still a lot of duplication and a lot of effort that's going on the implementation side. And the design system isn't interested in telling teams to say, drop Drupal in favor of Jekyll or something like that. We're not interested in that at all. But we do want to learn more about how we, from the design system side, from the side of the sort of design language and some of the coding tools, how can we better support the diverse community of implementation teams? How can we supply code that remains useful regardless of the implementation and help project teams also connect with one another, share and reuse solutions, and build better sites easier and faster, sort of regardless of their platform? So that's a part of what I want to discuss with Dustin and Brian here, what their experience was like using the design system from the code side, and then also with all of us, how the design system might better play a role in maintaining sort of a healthy ecosystem of implementations, whether that's Drupal or whether it's any sort of implementation out there. What can we do from the design system side to help you build things better and easier, in addition to the code we're shipping as part of the design system? For just a little look into what our provisional roadmap is over the next months and year. Really what we just launched Design System 2 in April, and what we were trying to do with Design System 2 was to develop a design language for describing what we were building, because we knew that we had to expand the design system and build more things. We knew that what we delivered in the default package, all the components that we delivered were a great starting point, but were not sufficient nor comprehensive. You probably couldn't build your entire site and all the functionality you needed just with what we gave out of the box. So we knew we still have to expand what the design system provides. And the first step in learning how we were going to expand the design system was to really codify the design language that we were already using to build what we built. So the big part of Design System 2 was the development of that design language, sort of the palettes of colors that we were using, the palettes of white space that we were using to design these things, typography, line length, all of the various look and feel components of how visual design goes together. We wanted to turn all of those different design decisions into palettes of choices that we could apply to our own work, and that other teams could apply to new work that they do. So now we're there. We're at Design System 2. That design language exists. All of the tools and all the components we've already developed still exist. And what we're looking to do in the near future is to add the most requested new components. We've done a lot of work into trying to ascertain what those requested new components are, what exists in other design systems, what would be easier lifts or harder lifts. And now we're going to get down to the process of actually building out some of those components. And in support of that, we're also working to develop a submissions pipeline so that we're better able to accept contributions from the community. So if you had to build a modal for your site and the modal doesn't exist in the design system, how might you begin to contribute that modal component back into the design system? What are the expectations for contributing something back to the design system? How will we evaluate what you've done? How will we work together to actually get it into the system so that others can begin using the thing that you developed and got them back into the system? Some of the other things we're trying to do, we want to just make our website more useful. We want to connect our website to GitHub better so that we're better able to track the progress of our components, component by component. So you can see on our website, like, this is the accordion, and this is the accordion. When was the last time the accordion code was changed? Like, how does that compare to your implementation? What might you have to change to get it up to the most current version? That's just an example of one of the things we might do by better integrating GitHub and our own website. We want to begin to build better accessibility testing guidelines and automation so that we are better testing our own components and we can give better guidance to other teams that is synchronized with the guidance that like Section 508 develops, so that we're able to say, okay, you've developed something, like, this is what Section 508 recommends, these are the tools that we can recommend using to test your own site and what you've built. We're going to be working to develop some more guidance around metadata and microformats. So the kinds of metadata you might be adding to the head of your website, or other kind of microformats you might be integrating if you're doing things related to events, or other kinds of data that you include on the website that might be scraped by search engines or other places that might accept structured data. What guidance do we give around the world of structured data? We're also beginning to wanting to blueprint a future for the design system and how it might integrate with something like web components or another kind of solution that would allow us to abstract the sort of markup and JavaScript layer and style sheet layer of our components into like one package. So in the future of the web design system, one doesn't have to be copying markup from our website and pasting it into your template and re-templating it out in Twig or whatever to get a functional component. We want to be able to build some of that into our components themselves, or at least research whether this is a viable path forward for a design system. So those are essentially the things that we're doing now and we're thinking about doing in the future. But at least for this audience, some of the things that I think are most critical are just understanding how the design system is working with what you're building now, and then talking more about just how the community of Drupal developers, how we might help the community of Drupal developers communicate with each other. If there's a role for the design system in that, so that what you're building, so that you're not all reinventing your own specific wheels on all of your projects, and that you are better able to use some of the work that other teams are doing from the implementation side.
All right, thanks, Dan. All right, next let's look at the US WDS Drupal theme. This base theme focuses on defining Drupal's markup so that it will work with the US WDS library. Some CSS is added to deal with unavoidable Drupalisms, but only as a last resort. Brian's worked with this specifically and has definitely gotten his hands dirty. So maybe you can give us an idea of where things are right now with it and what the roadmap looks like for the future.
Sure. Yeah, so the Drupal theme that we help maintain has come a long way since the release of V2 in April, and there was a lot of V1 stuff still in there. I don't know if you guys have had experience trying to use that theme before some of the latest dev releases or the release candidate that's either out now or about to come out. But we've been making a lot of headway in changing that stuff. And the way Drupal's dealing with implementing this theme is through a lot of pre-process and templating and trying to cover a lot of different things. And so I think the theme's come a long way since we first started messing with version 2 implementation of it. But yeah, there's still some work to be done, and all of you are free to submit patches and bug requests and all that other fun stuff.
Is this still in release candidate mode then?
I don't know if it is or not. I meant to check before we started this, but I didn't. I submitted a patch before I got on the plane, and I'm not sure if that's in yet or what. So I'm sure you guys are looking it up right now.
Instant feedback, it's great.
Yeah.
Okay, and there's also one more addition to kind of this ecosystem. Unfortunately, Michael Ferranda, who is the maintainer of the United States Web Design System base theme, which is just slightly different, wasn't able to make it, but I want to make sure that people are aware that it exists and that it's part of the ecosystem. This theme is built utilizing the United States Web Design System. It's a major versions of this theme will reflect the major version of the design system, so it's going to be, Michael's main goal is to keep in track with that, with those changes. There's a little bit of a difference in methodology with this between the theme that Civic Actions helps maintain and this theme. This one is truly a base theme, whereas the theme that we help maintain is based off of a classy theme. So there's a slight difference in methodology and a little difference in architecture, but still it's the kind of same thing. And actually, in addition to this one, we also discovered this morning, we held a BOF trying to talk about a little bit about the community and migrations, and we discovered that 18F actually got their own Drupal theme. So we're going to reach out to them to try and get a little more information about that so that we can see, it's like a giant Venn diagram. Where's the overlap? Where are people touching, and can we work together so that we're not, wasting effort. That's one thing, that the Drupal community is really good about is, working with each other when you have, parallel efforts pushing together to help move things forward.
Are there any other USWDS
Yeah, great question.
themes in the house today?
Has anyone else developed their own custom thing that would go with this? If not, no worries, but if you do, check in with us afterwards maybe.
Yeah.
So this is where we talk a little bit more about community and engagement. Here we get Sheldon, topic 1, faster than light particles at CERN, paradigm shifting discovery, or another Swiss export as full of holes as their cheese, and converse. So this is where we kind of dig into aspects of the community a little bit more, hoping that Dan, from your perspective, we had talked a little bit in the BOF about this and community engagement. How does that shape out from your perspective?
Well, right now, most of the community that we monitor is community that we see on our own USWDS public Slack as part of the TCS Slack. So it's like chat.18f.gov or .csa.gov is the link to sort of get into that USWDS public Slack. That is the Slack where I am and where I try to see what questions people are asking or what things people bring up. What we're getting toward is where else should I be? Where else should I be to know where people are having issues around what they're building for government websites. There's a content managers listserv that goes out around Gov, and I definitely pay attention to that. We have our own design system email and mailing list. We have our own email address. But where else should the design system be to make sure that we are hearing about any issues or that we're able to be helpful? One of the things that came up is maybe we should be in the Drupal Slack. And maybe there's a place for us in the Gov channel of the Drupal Slack, which I have heard is maybe gathering mothballs right now, but maybe we could begin to revive and make more of a place for this kind of conversation in the future. But maybe there are other places, or maybe there's more that we could develop ourselves from the design system side. Maybe there are more resources we could try to point to in our own Slack or from our own website that would be useful. But I think that's what I'm trying to figure out right now is where should we be as the design system to help be a positive force in the community, and or what should we be doing from our side to have that same sort of result. So if there are any other places where you as developers go to think about Gov projects, that's something I would be interested in hearing about.
Okay, Brian, from your perspective, I know this is kind of preaching to the choir, but maybe not everybody understands how the Drupal community works around themes and stuff like that. What sort of things can the community do to engage with the theme that you're helping support?
Submitting bugs and saying that something's messed up when you find it, instead of just patching it and fixing it on your local, is pretty important feedback, because we haven't tested every single inch of the thing, and we don't know all of the different ways you're using it or which components you're using and how you're using them. And so things like that, or even feature requests, would be really helpful. And then even more helpful is actual patches to fix some of those things that you find and submit to the theme. And also contributing back up a layer to where Dan's talking about and giving feedback to the US WDS team themselves.
So would you be doing all this in GitHub? Is the theme hub?
Well, it's through Drupal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that would be the issue queue?
Issue queue, yep.
Okay. So if you're not familiar with the way the Drupal community structure works around, themes, modules, things of that nature, there is literally a component of the Drupal.org website where you go to the actual page for the module, the theme. They have off to the right in sort of a little dashboard, it gives you access to issue queues. So then you go to the issue pages, and then you can actually look at the history of things that have been going on in the community, what the work's been doing, how recently it's been done, and also you can submit your own issues, or you can pick issues out of there if you want to help. So it's a really good place to look and make sure that stay engaged with the community. A question I have, now that we've kind of heard from them, I'd really like to hear from the audience. So we had multiple types of kind of job descriptions that we talked about before. I'd like to get kind of feedback from those different groups as to why you're here, maybe what you're trying to get from the panel, and maybe we can help get some information to you. So managers, people are looking at this from the 10,000 foot level. Do you have any questions for the panel that can maybe help you make a decision on whether this is right for you or whether it's not, or maybe help kind of clarify things for you? Anybody want to ask a question to the panel? Please, Chris.
Sure. So I was at Department of Commerce first, where we used the version 1 to get into Drupal 8, and that definitely had hard points, but it works well and it looks good. And so now I'm at ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and we're looking to move into D8. But I think where I would love to hear from you guys, because when you look at the examples of people who use the design system, you see all that, what you're talking about, creative, beautiful variations, a lot of people taking that as their starting block, and then doing great extra things on top of it, changing it visually up. What besides just kind of listing here are sites who have implemented it, how do other design systems and how might you guys help, like if you're going to customize this component, here are some ways you can customize it without breaking that core UX thing that makes it a good component?
Yeah, I think that is a challenge. Because the design system does leave a lot in the hands of the designers and developers who are implementing it. If you're just going with the default, like that's where we give the most guidance around the default implementation. When you begin to make other decisions, that's where we want to be able to have guidance that might apply regardless of the implementation you do. I think we're still working to improve the guidance so it works at that level. I think we do want to be able to supply guidance for, let's just say, a side nav or something that is broad enough from the UX perspective that you can adjust our existing side nav and still have something that's inside of that guidance. So an example of that might be something that we might already have that says, a touch target has to be, whatever the Apple human interface guideline is, which is approximately 40 pixels or so for a touch target. And that has to be like the size of any sort of like button or something like that. From our perspective, I think we want to say, okay, that's a sort of hard guideline that we want to enforce for a button. We don't, and some other hard guidelines might be that the button has to have this kind of contrast ratio with its background, and that the text on the button has to have that as well, and it should have, let's just say, it should have a visible active state. And those are the kinds of things that I think we really want to stress on the design system side from the usability side, but we don't necessarily want to say your button should have 4 pixels of border radius, or that it needs to be blue, or this shade of blue. I think those are the kinds of things that we want to leave up to individual implementations, but strengthen the guidance we give so that it knows where to be strong, and it knows where it doesn't need to apply as much. So improving our guidance so that it's really focused on sort of usability issues that might apply to any instance. Beyond that, I think we could still do a better job at pointing to examples of what other projects have done. We have that small sort of spotlight section that gives like 6 examples, but as you say, they're kind of all over the place, like all kinds of implementations there. We could do a better job of tracking who is using the design system and tracking it also from at a component level. So these are different examples of the Gov banner. And here's an example of a Gov banner, a vanilla Gov banner. Here's an example of a Gov banner that might have a little like this is in beta message on the side or something like that. So that we can point to solutions, existing solutions that go beyond the default. So I would love to be able to do that. If we could do that in combination with, and really as a partner to expanding that usability guidance, then we would have a good combination of both really solid usability guidance and a description of the sort of like the kind of gamut that describes.
Awesome. Any other 10,000-foot questions, kind of the higher perspective? Anybody else have any more? Yeah, go ahead.
I guess I'm interested in terms of getting perspective on accepting outside contributions to the design system, because one of the challenges I'm working with the responsible design system there. One of the challenges we face is making it feel inclusive so that people can contribute, thereby wanting to grow it and mature it versus saying, well, it doesn't do what we want, so we're just going to be part of it. Everybody's always looking for an excuse to kind of fork what they're doing. So I'm just love to get your perspectives on how you're thinking about making it more inclusive.
I think that's going to be hard, and I think that we have to understand that takes actual effort from actual people, like that developing a community and a relationship and even just maintaining a successful open source project is not something you do just with documentation. That it requires an investment in actual people who are out there really being proactive with teams that are doing these things and helping them through the process, and like grooming our GitHub so that everything is well labeled and there are good first projects and there's good communication in there. But I think it is, it's not going to be, there's a lot that we can do to make the process easier, but it won't really be, it probably can't be fully successful without some people who are in some way responsible for real proactive community management and with outreach and some technical help in what that, and encouragement to get them through that process. So I think we're really at just the beginning here, where we're going to try to make improvements to our documentation, to our GitHub, to do the things that we can do without more people until we have more people. We want to help make it clear what that submissions pipeline is and what's expected, and to make it clear like what and how you expect people to change things, and where we don't, and where that's sort of out of bounds, like speaking to the previous question. We can be more clear there, and we can be more welcoming in a number of ways to contributions. We're going to start with that, but I think we have to realize that we can't really be fully successful until we do that in combination with real community management that is going to take time and resources. I hope that speaks to it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty consistent. It's not going to happen because wishful thinking is good for us.
I know we had, I don't know if you were on that call, but we had a call with some other implementers of government design systems a couple months back, and the team at GovUK was talking about what they were doing with their community management, and saying that they were doing a lot of these kinds of things, GitHub related, like legal management and process management, but that to actually make it work has taken a lot of time and resources, and that managing a good, healthy open source project is not something you can just do with documentation.
Quick question related to that. So, to keep people's buy-in, is there, now that V2 is released, is there a release schedule or an idea of, is it all maintenance until you get to V3, or are you adding more components, giving the people an incentive to stick with the system as it is so that they can take advantage of these updates and things like that?
Yeah, so there isn't really, there isn't a plan right now for what the design system 3 would be or when it would come out. In general, our approach is that we are not interested in releasing a new major version of the design system while folks are just still understanding what the last one is. We don't want to get into a cycle of like constant migration and update mode. In the longest or longer term, we do want to be able to move to a system where migration is easier, so that we can continue to grow the design system and change the design system, but the pain of moving from one version to another will be lessened. So there's no real roadmap for a release of design system 3. I would say, just from a gut, it's something that's still at least a couple of years away. What we expect to do in the context of Design System 2, Design System 2.1 through 2, 3, 4, 5, is largely around upgrading the functionality of what already exists, building new components where components don't already exist, instead of making significant changes to existing components or re-architecting the whole design system. So we do expect to do that kind of work in the near, over the course of the next year or two. But that, I don't think of that as a major new version of the design system, rather important upgrades to this major version.
Awesome. Developers in the room, do you have, Kai's already ready to jump in. Kai, why don't you go ahead and start with one? Go ahead, Kai.
I want to give a shout out to Abby Bowman, who shepherded us from a conference to the USWDS, which worked like a champ. And it wasn't easy, but it worked. It was responsive, accessible, beautiful. But migrating to 2 is a bit of a pain. Things and regions are not where you expected. And even in that Drupal.org page, like, I hop on this over and over. It says it clearly. The main primary menu and the secondary menu are in your upper right. And I'm thinking to myself, why in the world is it in the upper right? That makes no darn sense. Meaning most menus are horizontal across the page, not up there. Just little things like that. Sometimes whole menus actually, other people have said that calls it is the biggest thing in this problem. I don't know whether it's there's a library in there that's kind of a little bit out of whack. Other people have said the footer is flat because of that. I even tried it with other stacks. Like for instance, I tried to operate that desktop. Other things where that are different from that. So something's going on. Something's going on with that
Brian, do you have any? Oh, sorry. Do you have any tips that might help with menu and things like that you you've experienced?
I know what you're talking about, because if you don't have like a search block and you just have 2 menus and you don't have a very big menu, maybe like it's kind of like just off to the right. Is that what you're saying?
It's attempting to stick it where like bold menu is or should be.
I wonder if you're using if you're using an older version of the theme, because there was a lot of template changes around that area to accommodate the new V2 stuff. So that could be it, and if that's not it, I would definitely suggest just like putting something in the issue queue, and one of us will jump in there and check it out and see if we can duplicate that, because there have been people using the theme, at least the latest versions of it, with some success. So I would reach out there with some more specifics and screenshots or something like
That
that.
could be probably true. We have created version 1, so version 1 could be right back there. The jump could be like monumental. It's not even
When you look at the Drupal issue queues, does that give you, can you see all the issues that other people have raised? It's not just like an inbox.
Yeah, you can see all the issues and you can search them first and see if yours is in there, if other people have encountered the same thing.
And you're sort of active in like watching that queue and responding to issues.
I personally am not, but other people are.
Iris, our maintainer, keeps an eye on that, definitely. Any other developers? Yeah, right there.
What about the difference between the theme module and the base theme? How are they different? The difference in the recommendations between something on the US WDS and just the base, or US is using the theme available as a module?
So hold on, Brian. So the question was, can we compare the differences of the 2 Drupal themes that are supporting the US WDS? Go ahead.
Sure. So the base theme, which I haven't really looked at that closely, it's a scratch-built theme. So what that means is it's doing all of your templating and pre-processing from the beginning. And our theme is built based off of the Classy theme, which is one of Drupal's core themes. So we're only adding templates and pre-process overrides where we need them, and then letting Drupal do its thing the rest of the time. And The difference is with the base theme, there may be some things that don't quite work right when it's outputting to Drupal, just as mostly on the admin side of stuff. If your contextual menus may not work as you expect, or little things like that. And again, that's something to put into the issue queue for the base theme if you run across those things. But someone was mentioning that they turned on Layout Builder and it just completely stopped working because that's a relatively new addition to Drupal core, and I'm just guessing that theme hasn't taken into account the attributes and things it needs to be printing in certain areas or something like that. So that's the difference between, that's one of the main differences. Other than that, it's doing the same thing. We're both using the HTML structures for US WDS and bringing in the theme as a library, or bringing in the design system as a library. I'm not really sure what the workflow on base is, if it's a pre-compiled thing and then it's just using it, or if it's through a workflow to compile all your stuff together. You can do either with the thing that we have out there. But that's kind of one of the big differences, is just where it's based off of.
Another question is there a place where we can find the comparison between version 1 and version 2? Yes, my use case is that actually I started working on a university project just 2 weeks ago. And now the hardship was I had to work on a Windows laptop, so I could not do it and compile. I had to download the library in a sense, and nothing worked. Even the manual was completely broken. But then I realized that maybe there is a difference, because I thought it's going to be out of the box, but I didn't realize that most of the documentation is still in version 1, and the components are version 2 now. So there is a big difference between some of the examples given where some of the sites they are using version 1, and everything which I got out of the library was version 2. There is no way to compare what's the difference. So is there some way to that looking correctly, or how can we compare like the existing samples version 1 compared to version 2?
So let me just clarify really quick. Are you talking about the design system itself, the differences between version 1 and 2, or are you talking about differences in the Drupal theme itself?
Entire ecosystem.
In the entire ecosystem? I don't know.
Well,
Not really, right?
Can you summarize the question a little bit?
So if I understand the question, it's when looking at the differences in the entire ecosystem between version 1 of the design system and the version of the Drupal system that supported version 1, and then looking at the differences between version 2 of the design system and the new version, I guess, the new release of the Drupal theme that supports that. So I think from that aspect, the Drupal theme, it's not like it's a version 1, version 2, it's the release candidates that have changed because the older version supported 1 and then it had to be updated, right?
I believe there's an 8.1 version and an 8.2 version.
Okay.
But if you're asking about just the design system, the website should be all V2 at this point, right? You don't have to go to the subdomain V2.
That's right. So from the design system side, if you want to dig in more to the changes between version 1 and version 2, if you go to designsystem.digital.gov, there's a button up at the top that says migrate to version 203. If you select that button, that gives all of essentially the migration overview, which is at a both high level and at a relatively granular level, the kinds of things that have changed in the design system from version 1 to version 2. That is from the perspective of what you might need to change in version 1 to get it to version 2.
Did that answer was that what you were getting at?
The Drupal theme, is there a version where we migrated from 1 to 2? Because my use case is that I have to finish this project within the next 4 weeks. So my thing was that it was assumed that you just copy the theme from USWDS and create this new sub-theme, sub-site, and get it done with. But now my issue is that USWDS is using version 1 theme and the older version of the Drupal theme, version 1 design system. But now, so I didn't get access to this theme for 2.5 weeks. So I started building on version 2. Now I cannot copy the elements which are existing in the existing theme. So I'm stuck in between actually. And there is no way to compare what's in V1 and how I can build the system in V2. So in those terms, is there a way to quickly distinguish? Because especially in terms of the download from the Drupal project, it's just what it is right now, but it doesn't tell anything for
Okay, yeah. So you're talking about what the difference between the version 1 of the theme and version 2 of the theme. I don't know of an easy way to tell the differences, but they are the same differences that will be outlined from the USWDS version 1 and 2, with some extra templating changes and pre-process changes, and most of that is just to get the class namespace and everything correct to the new version. I guess it's like a quick and dirty way you could do it is download both and kind of put them in a diff and see, because it sounds like you're untangling a big knot right now and you can't just throw everything out. You have to fix the things that are already there. So, I mean, I feel for you. But yeah, I would just, it's just going to be kind of a tedious thing, the fact that you have to do. Maybe it might be faster just to start with a fresh V2 theme and fix what isn't working from that point.
I would love to take more questions, but we're at time. Feel free to grab us. We have a booth over at Civic Actions over there. You can come talk to us. We'll be here the rest of today, and then I'll be there tomorrow. Dan, you're heading out tonight, right?
I'm heading out tonight.
Okay.
I also just wanted to say that the design system has open public monthly calls on the third Thursday of the month. If you go to digital.gov, like we tend to schedule through digital.gov, so you can check in at digital.gov to see when that's coming up. It'll be the third Thursday, but to check in on what the topic is. I think next month's topic is going to be just like bootstrapping US WDS and getting up a project quickly.
All right, thanks everyone for coming.